Maya Rodriguez had always found peace in the mechanical precision of firearms maintenance. The rhythmic clicking of metal components, the smell of gun oil, and the satisfaction of perfectly calibrated sights provided a meditative escape from the chaos of military life. As the lead weapons technician for the 82nd Airborne Division, she spent her days ensuring that every rifle, every scope, and every piece of equipment functioned flawlessly when soldiers' lives depended on it. The morning sun filtered through the windows of the armory at Fort Bragg, casting long shadows across rows of M4 carbines waiting for her attention. Maya had arrived early, as she always did, preferring the quiet hours before the base came alive with training exercises and briefings. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, disassembling a rifle that had been jamming during yesterday's exercises. Each spring, each pin, each component was inspected with the care of a surgeon examining a patient. She had been doing this work for 6 years, ever since enlisting straight out of high school in her hometown of Phoenix. While other girls her age were heading to college or starting families, Maya had chosen a different path. The daughter of a single mother who worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat, military service offered stability, purpose, and the chance to develop skills that few women in her neighborhood ever dreamed of acquiring. Her reputation among the soldiers was exceptional. Maya could diagnose a malfunctioning weapon by sound alone, and her modifications often improved accuracy beyond factory specifications. The men initially questioned whether a young woman could truly understand the intricacies of their equipment, but skepticism quickly turned to respect when her work consistently outperformed standard military specifications. The armory door opened with a sharp metallic clang, interrupting her concentration. Staff Sergeant James Chen entered, carrying a modified sniper rifle that Maya immediately recognized as one of the new M110 semi-automatic sniper systems. Chen was known throughout the base as one of the finest marksmen in the division, with confirmed kills from distances that seemed impossible to most soldiers. "Rodriguez, I need you to check this scope," Chen said, setting the rifle carefully on her workbench. "Something feels off about the zero. My shots were pulling left yesterday during the competition." Maya examined the weapon, noting the custom modifications Chen had made to the stock and trigger assembly. The scope was a high-end Leupold model worth more than most soldiers made in a month. She began the methodical process of checking the mounting system, looking for any signs of looseness or misalignment that could affect accuracy. "The mounting rings look solid," she said, peering through the scope and checking its internal mechanisms. "When did you last have this professionally calibrated?" "About 3 months ago, right before the regional competition," Chen replied, watching her work with the intensity of someone whose life might depend on the weapon's reliability. "I've been consistently hitting targets at 800 yards, but yesterday something was definitely wrong." Maya continued her examination, removing the scope from its mounts to inspect the internal components. The precision instruments required for this level of work were spread across her bench like surgical tools. Temperature, humidity, and even the slightest vibration could affect a sniper's accuracy at extreme distances. As she worked, other soldiers began filtering into the armory for their daily weapon assignments. Maya was accustomed to the background noise of military life, but today something felt different. There was an undercurrent of excitement, conversations about an upcoming competition that she hadn't been paying attention to. "You hear about the challenge match next week?" one soldier asked another as they signed out their equipment. "Yeah, division-wide. Winners get a 3-day pass and bragging rights for the next year." Maya's ears perked up at this information, though she continued focusing on Chen's rifle. Competition shooting had always interested her, but as a support specialist she rarely had opportunities to demonstrate her own shooting abilities. Her job was to ensure others could perform at their peak, not to compete herself. Chen noticed her interest. "You thinking about entering, Rodriguez? Support staff aren't typically eligible for combat competitions," she replied, though there was a note of wistfulness in her voice. "This one's different. It's open to all military occupational specialties. They want to see who really has the best shooters on base, regardless of job description." Maya finished her inspection of the scope, finding a microscopic piece of debris that had somehow worked its way into the adjustment mechanism. After cleaning and recalibrating the system, she handed the rifle back to Chen. "Try it now. The tracking should be perfect." Chen shouldered the weapon, checking the feel and balance. "Thanks, Rodriguez. You always know exactly what's wrong." He paused at the door. Seriously, you should consider entering the competition. I've seen you at the range during your off hours. You're better than half the designated marksmen in this division. After Chen left, Maya found herself distracted from her usual work routine. The idea of competing against the base's best shooters was both thrilling and terrifying. She had always been content working behind the scenes, ensuring that others could achieve their maximum potential. But there was a part of her that wondered what she might be capable of if given the chance to truly test herself. The morning progressed with its usual parade of weapons needing attention, but Maya's mind kept wandering to the conversation about the competition. By lunchtime, she had made a decision that would change everything. Walking to the registration office, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness that reminded her of her first day in basic training. The clerk behind the desk looked surprised when Maya requested an entry form for the marksmanship competition. Support personnel rarely participated in such events, and certainly not in competitions dominated by infantry and special operations soldiers. "You sure about this, Specialist Rodriguez?" the clerk asked. "This isn't going to be like recreational shooting at the range." Maya signed her name with steady handwriting, committing herself to a challenge that would test not only her shooting ability, but also her courage to step outside the comfortable boundaries of her established role. She had no idea that this decision would lead to an encounter that would forever change her perception of what she was capable of achieving. The shooting range at Fort Bragg buzzed with nervous energy as competitors gathered for the preliminary rounds of the marksmanship competition. Maya arrived 30 minutes early, carrying her personal rifle in a weathered case that had belonged to her grandfather, a Korean War veteran who had taught her to shoot during childhood summers in Arizona. The familiar weight of the weapon and the memories it carried provided comfort as she surveyed the intimidating scene before her. Dozens of soldiers were already present, most of them from combat units with impressive arrays of customized equipment. Maya recognized many faces from her work in the armory, but seeing them in their element as competitive shooters made her acutely aware of how out of place she appeared. While they wore specialized shooting jackets and used expensive spotting scopes, she had only her standard-issue gear and the knowledge gained from years of maintaining their weapons. The competition format was more complex than she had anticipated. The first day would consist of multiple stages designed to test different aspects of marksmanship. Starting with precision shooting at known distances, the challenges would progressively increase in difficulty, culminating in unknown distance targets and time-limited scenarios that simulated combat conditions. Maya found a spot at the end of the firing line and began preparing her equipment with the same methodical approach she used in the armory. Her rifle was a standard M4 that she had carefully modified within regulations, improving the trigger and installing a scope she had purchased with her own money. While not as sophisticated as the custom weapons around her, she knew every component intimately and had confidence in its capabilities. "First time competing?" asked a voice beside her. Maya turned to see a tall woman with captain's bars on her uniform. Captain Sarah Mitchell was known throughout the base as one of the few female officers in a special operations unit, and her reputation as a shooter was legendary. "Yes, ma'am. I'm usually on the other side, maintaining equipment rather than using it competitively. I remember you from the armory. You're Rodriguez, right? You fixed my rifle's timing issue last month." Captain Mitchell's demeanor was friendly but focused. "What made you decide to compete?" Maya considered the question as she adjusted her scope settings. "I guess I wanted to see if all those years of understanding how these weapons work translates into actually using them effectively." "Fair enough. Just remember, the fundamentals don't change whether you're shooting for score or shooting for your life. Breath control, sight alignment, trigger squeeze. Everything else is just noise." The range officer's whistle signaled the beginning of the first stage, 10 shots at 300 yards from the prone position. Maya settled into her shooting position, feeling the familiar comfort of the rifle stock against her shoulder. Through her scope, the target appeared crisp and clear, the black bullseye standing out sharply against the white backing. She controlled her breathing, finding the natural pause between inhalation and exhalation where her body was most still. The crosshairs settled on the center of the target, and she began the slow, steady squeeze of the trigger that she had practiced thousands of times during her off-duty hours at the range. The rifle recoiled smoothly, and Maya immediately worked the bolt to chamber the next round. She could see through her scope that the shot had hit well within the scoring rings, though she couldn't determine the exact value from this distance. 9 more carefully aimed shots followed, each one executed with the same deliberate precision. When the ceasefire was called, Maya felt satisfied with her performance but had no idea how she compared to the other competitors. The electronic scoring system would provide immediate feedback, but she tried to manage her expectations. Many of these soldiers had been competing for years and had access to training opportunities that she had never experienced. The results were posted 20 minutes later, and Maya stared at the scoreboard in disbelief. Her name appeared in the top 10 out of nearly 60 competitors, with a score that would have been respectable in any civilian competition. Several soldiers around her were looking at the board with surprise, clearly not expecting a weapons technician to perform so well. "Nice shooting," Rodriguez called out Staff Sergeant Chen, who had finished just ahead of her on the board. "Looks like all that time working on our rifles taught you something about using them too." The second stage moved to the standing position at 200 yards, a much more challenging scenario that would test stability and muscular control. Maya had practiced this position extensively during her personal range time, knowing that it was often the determining factor in competitive shooting. Her smaller frame actually provided an advantage here, as she could achieve a more stable platform than some of the larger soldiers. As she prepared for the second string of fire, Maya noticed a group of soldiers from the Special Operations community watching the competition with particular interest. Among them was a figure she didn't recognize, a lean man with cold eyes who seemed to be evaluating each competitor with the intensity of a predator studying prey. The stranger's gaze lingered on Maya longer than on the other shooters, and she felt an uncomfortable chill despite the warm afternoon sun. There was something in his expression that suggested he was seeing her not as a fellow soldier, but as a potential target or threat. She forced herself to focus on the task at hand, pushing the unsettling observation to the back of her mind. The standing portion proved more challenging than the prone shooting, as Maya had expected. The rifle felt heavier after 10 rounds, and maintaining the precise sight alignment required for accurate shooting became progressively more difficult. Still, she managed to maintain her position in the top tier of competitors, confirming that her performance in the first stage hadn't been a fluke. As the day progressed through moving targets and rapid-fire scenarios, Maya's confidence grew with each successful stage. The other competitors began treating her with the respect accorded to a legitimate threat, rather than the curiosity reserved for an unexpected participant. Her years of understanding weapon mechanics translated into an intuitive feel for each shot, allowing her to make subtle adjustments that kept her scores consistently high. The final stage of the preliminary round was the most challenging. Unknown distance targets in varying lighting conditions. Maya had to estimate range, adjust for wind, and compensate for the changing light as afternoon moved toward evening. This was where experience and instinct mattered more than technical knowledge. As she prepared for her final shot of the day, Maya became aware that the mysterious observer was now standing directly behind the firing line, watching her with unwavering attention. The intensity of his stare was distracting, but she forced herself to complete her shooting sequence with the same precision she had maintained throughout the competition. When the final scores were tallied, Maya found herself in 7th place overall, qualifying easily for the next day's advanced rounds. The achievement was beyond her most optimistic expectations, but as she packed her equipment, she couldn't shake the feeling that her success had attracted attention she wasn't sure she wanted. The stranger approached her as she was leaving the range, his movement fluid and purposeful like a predator closing on prey. Maya's instincts, honed by years of military training, told her that this encounter would be significant in ways she couldn't yet understand. The stranger's approach was deliberately casual, but Maya's trained instincts recognized the controlled movement of someone accustomed to violence. He was medium height with dark hair and features that could have belonged to any ethnicity, the kind of face that would disappear in a crowd. His uniform bore no unit insignia, only the rank of Sergeant First Class and a name tape that read, Morrison. "Impressive shooting today, Rodriguez," Morrison said, his voice carrying a slight accent that Maya couldn't place. 7th place is quite an achievement for someone whose primary job involves fixing weapons rather than firing them. Maya finished securing her rifle case before responding, using the time to study Morrison more carefully. His equipment was non-standard, and she noticed that his boots showed signs of wear patterns consistent with extensive field work, rather than garrison duty. Everything about him suggested special operations, but there was something else, something that made her instinctively cautious. "Thank you, Sergeant Morrison. I've had good teachers and plenty of practice time." Maya kept her response neutral, though she was curious about why this man had sought her out specifically. Morrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. "I've been watching the competition today, evaluating talent for some specialized training opportunities. Your performance caught my attention, particularly your consistency under pressure. That's not something that can be taught easily." "What kind of training opportunities?" Maya asked, though part of her already suspected she wouldn't like the answer. "The kind where precision matters more than anything else, where one shot can determine the success or failure of an entire mission." Morrison paused, studying her reaction. "Tell me, Rodriguez, what do you know about competitive precision shooting at extreme distances?" Maya had read about such competitions, primarily civilian events where shooters attempted to hit targets at distances exceeding a mile. The combination of ballistics, meteorology, and marksmanship required was far beyond anything she had attempted, though the technical aspects had always fascinated her. "I understand the theory, but I've never attempted anything beyond standard military distances," she answered honestly. Morrison nodded approvingly. "Honest answer. Most soldiers would have exaggerated their experience. The truth is, there are very few people with the combination of technical knowledge and natural ability required for that level of precision. You demonstrated both today." The conversation was interrupted by the approach of Captain Mitchell, who had been observing from a distance. Her expression suggested she recognized Morrison and wasn't entirely pleased to see him talking with Maya. "Sergeant Morrison," Captain Mitchell said coolly, "I didn't realize you were on base." "Just observing the competition, Captain. Always looking for talented individuals who might benefit from advanced training opportunities." Morrison's demeanor shifted slightly, becoming more formal in the presence of an officer. Captain Mitchell turned to Maya. "Rodriguez, excellent shooting today. You should be proud of your performance." Her tone carried an undertone that suggested Maya should be cautious about whatever Morrison was proposing. "Thank you, ma'am. It was a good learning experience." Morrison stepped closer, his voice dropping to a conversational level that wouldn't carry to nearby soldiers. "The next phase of the competition tomorrow will include some long-range scenarios. Targets out to 800 yards, wind conditions, time pressure. It would be interesting to see how you perform under those conditions." "I'm looking forward to the challenge," Maya replied, though she was becoming increasingly uncomfortable with Morrison's intense interest in her performance. "I'm sure you are. And after tomorrow's competition, perhaps we could discuss some training opportunities that might interest you. The kind of work where your technical knowledge and shooting ability would be extremely valuable." Captain Mitchell intervened before Maya could respond. "Rodriguez, why don't you get some rest tonight? Tomorrow's going to be challenging and you'll want to be at your best." Maya recognized the dismissal and was grateful for it. "Yes, ma'am. I'll see you both tomorrow." As she walked away, Maya could hear Morrison and Captain Mitchell having a conversation in low, tense voices. She caught fragments about recruitment and not appropriate, but couldn't make out the specific details. Whatever Morrison was involved in, Captain Mitchell clearly disapproved of his interest in Maya. That evening, Maya found herself unable to concentrate on her usual routine of equipment maintenance and preparation for the next day's competition. Morrison's offer of specialized training was intriguing, but something about his manner had triggered her instincts for caution. She had worked with enough special operations personnel to recognize the type, but Morrison seemed different somehow, carrying an aura of danger that went beyond standard military operations. She decided to do some research, using her access to personnel databases to learn more about Morrison's background. What she found was troubling. His service record showed numerous deployments to conflict zones, but with gaps and redactions that suggested classified operations. His training records indicated expertise in long-range precision shooting, surveillance, and what were euphemistically described as direct action missions. More concerning was what she didn't find. Morrison's current unit assignment was listed simply as Special Operations Command, with no specific details about his role or responsibilities. For someone with his experience and qualifications, such vague assignment information usually indicated involvement in activities that couldn't be officially acknowledged. Maya's research was interrupted by a knock on her barracks door. She opened it to find Captain Mitchell standing in the hallway, her expression serious. "Can I come in? We need to talk." Maya stepped aside, allowing the captain to enter her small but meticulously organized room. Captain Mitchell glanced around, noting the technical manuals and precision shooting books that filled Maya's bookshelf. "I wanted to talk to you about Sergeant Morrison," Captain Mitchell began without preamble. "I'm not going to tell you what decisions to make, but I think you should know what you might be getting involved in." "What kind of work is he really involved in?" Maya asked directly. Captain Mitchell hesitated, clearly choosing her words carefully. "The kind where precise shooting skills are used for purposes that don't always align with conventional military objectives. Morrison recruits for programs that operate in gray areas, where success is measured differently than in regular Army units. You're talking about assassination missions. I'm talking about operations where one person with the right skills can eliminate specific threats from extreme distances, often in politically sensitive situations where conventional military action isn't possible or desirable." Maya felt a chill as the implications became clear. Morrison wasn't just offering advanced training. He was recruiting for a program that would turn her technical expertise and shooting ability into tools for targeted killing. The precision she had developed in maintaining weapons and the accuracy she had demonstrated in competition would be used to take human lives from distances where the targets would never know they were in danger. "What happens if I'm not interested?" "Nothing happens. Morrison will move on to other candidates and you'll continue your current assignment." "But Maya," Captain Mitchell's voice carried a note of warning. "Morrison doesn't give up easily when he identifies someone with the specific combination of skills he needs. Tomorrow's competition will give him another chance to evaluate your capabilities, and a strong performance might make his recruitment efforts more persistent." As Captain Mitchell left, Maya realized that the competition had become about more than just testing her shooting ability. Tomorrow's performance would determine whether she remained a weapons technician who competed occasionally, or whether she would face pressure to become something far more dangerous and morally complex. The choice ahead of her would define not just her military career, but the kind of person she was willing to become in service to her country. The second day of competition dawned gray and windy, with gusts that would challenge even experienced long-range shooters. Maya arrived at the range earlier than necessary, hoping to study the wind patterns and prepare for the advanced scenarios that would determine the final rankings. The remaining 20 competitors represented the elite shooters from across the division, and Maya felt the weight of expectation as she prepared her equipment. Morrison was already present, positioned at the observation area with several other individuals who were clearly not regular base personnel. His attention seemed focused entirely on Maya, and she could feel his gaze tracking her movements as she went through her pre-competition routine. The pressure was unsettling, but she forced herself to maintain the methodical approach that had served her well the previous day. The first stage of advanced competition would test shooting at distances up to 800 yards, with targets that required precise range estimation and wind compensation. Maya had never attempted shots at these distances in competition, though she had studied the ballistics extensively during her technical training. Theory and practice were very different challenges, especially under the pressure of formal competition. Staff Sergeant Chen approached her position, carrying his customized rifle and wearing the focused expression of a serious competitor. Despite being one of the favorites to win the overall competition, he had always been supportive of Maya's participation. "How are you feeling about today?" Chen asked as he set up his equipment nearby. "Nervous but ready. I've been studying ballistics tables all week, trying to understand how bullet drop and wind drift work at these distances." Chen nodded approvingly. "The math is important, but don't overthink it. At these ranges, you need to trust your instincts as much as your calculations. The rifle will tell you what adjustments to make if you listen to it." As the competitors took their positions for the first long-range stage, Maya noticed that Morrison had moved closer to the firing line, positioning himself where he could observe her technique in detail. His scrutiny was distracting, but she tried to channel the focus she used during delicate weapon maintenance procedures. The targets at 800 yards appeared impossibly small through her scope, black circles that seemed to shimmer in the heat waves rising from the ground. Maya studied the wind flags placed at intervals between her position and the targets, noting how the grass moved and feeling the air currents on her face. Wind would be the determining factor at this distance. More important than minor errors in range estimation or sight alignment, she settled into her shooting position, adjusting her body until the rifle felt like a natural extension of her arms and shoulders. The breathing techniques she had practiced for years became automatic, finding the perfect moment between heartbeats when her body was completely still. Through the scope, the target reticle wavered slightly as she tracked the wind's effect on her sight picture. The first shot broke cleanly, and Maya immediately worked the bolt to chamber the next round while watching for the bullet's impact. At 800 yards, the time of flight was long enough that she could track the projectile's path and see where it struck the target. The hit was solid, well within the scoring rings, though not quite centered. Maya made a slight adjustment to her point of aim, compensating for the wind drift she had observed on the first shot. The second round struck closer to the center, confirming her read of the conditions. Shot after shot, she refined her understanding of how the wind was affecting bullet flight, building a mental map of the atmospheric conditions that would guide her remaining attempts. When the stage concluded, Maya had fired one of the highest scores of the day, outperforming several shooters with far more experience at extreme distances. The achievement was deeply satisfying, validation that her technical understanding of ballistics could translate into practical shooting ability when combined with solid fundamentals. Morrison approached her as she was preparing for the next stage, his expression unreadable but intense. "Excellent shooting, Rodriguez. Your ability to read wind conditions and make adjustments is exactly what I was hoping to see. Thank you, Sergeant Morrison. I've spent a lot of time studying ballistics, so it's good to see that knowledge applied successfully." Morrison glanced around, ensuring their conversation wouldn't be overheard by nearby competitors. "What you demonstrated just now goes beyond studying ballistics. You have an intuitive understanding of how atmospheric conditions affect projectile flight. That's not something that can be taught from books." Maya felt uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation, but before she could respond, the range officer called for competitors to prepare for the next stage. This scenario would involve multiple targets at varying distances, with time limits that would test both accuracy and speed. "We'll continue this conversation after the competition," Morrison said, his tone making it clear that he considered further discussion inevitable rather than optional. The time-limited stage proved more challenging than Maya had anticipated. The pressure to engage multiple targets quickly while maintaining accuracy pushed her beyond her comfort zone, but she found herself adapting to the demands with surprising effectiveness. Her familiarity with the mechanical operation of her rifle allowed her to work the bolt action smoothly while maintaining sight alignment between shots. As the competition progressed through increasingly difficult scenarios, Maya's performance remained consistently strong. She wasn't leading the overall standings, but her position in the top 5 represented an achievement that no one had expected from a weapons technician competing for the first time. The final stage would determine the ultimate winner. A single shot at an unknown distance target, with only one attempt to estimate range, wind conditions, and execute a perfect shot. The target was a steel plate barely visible at what appeared to be nearly 1,000 yards, requiring a level of precision that would challenge even the most experienced competitors. Maya studied the target through her scope, using techniques she had learned from maintaining sniper rifles to estimate the distance. The mirage patterns, the apparent size of the target, and the terrain features provided clues that she mentally compiled into a range estimate. Wind would be critical at this distance, and she spent several minutes observing grass movement and feeling air currents before making her adjustments. The shot felt perfect as it broke, the rifle recoiling smoothly as the bullet began its long flight to the distant target. Maya maintained her sight picture, tracking through the scope until she heard the distinctive ring of metal on metal that indicated a solid hit. The range erupted in cheers and applause. Maya had successfully engaged a target that several more experienced shooters had missed entirely, demonstrating a level of precision that even she hadn't known she possessed. The achievement was both thrilling and somehow frightening, as she realized the implications of what she had just accomplished. Morrison was the first to reach her position, his expression showing satisfaction mixed with something that looked almost predatory. "Outstanding shot, Rodriguez. You just demonstrated exactly the kind of capability I've been looking for." As the final scores were calculated, Maya found herself in 3rd place overall, a result that exceeded everyone's expectations, including her own. The achievement should have been purely satisfying, But Morrison's continued attention made her increasingly uncomfortable about what her success might have cost her. The competition was over. But Maya sensed that a more serious challenge was just beginning. Morrison's interest in her abilities had been confirmed by her performance, and she suspected that his recruitment efforts would now become much more persistent and difficult to decline. The award ceremony concluded with Maya accepting her third-place trophy, a moment that should have represented pure triumph, but was overshadowed by Morrison's lingering presence. As other competitors congratulated her and began dispersing, Morrison approached with the confident stride of someone accustomed to getting what he wanted. "Walk with me, Rodriguez. There's something I want to show you." It wasn't really a request, and Maya found herself following Morrison away from the main range complex toward a section of the base she rarely visited. They walked in silence through areas that became progressively more restricted, past checkpoints where Morrison's credentials opened doors that would have remained closed to most personnel. They arrived at a specialized range facility that Maya hadn't known existed. Despite her years working on the base, the setup was unlike anything she had seen before, with targets positioned at distances that stretched beyond normal training requirements. The equipment present was clearly not standard military issue, featuring precision instruments and specialized tools that represented technology far beyond her experience. "This is where we conduct advanced precision training," Morrison explained, gesturing toward the range. "The kind of training that prepares individuals for missions where failure isn't an option, and success is measured in millimeters, at distances most people can't even imagine." Maya examined the facility with professional interest, noting the sophisticated wind measurement equipment, the computerized ballistics calculators, and rifles that represented the absolute pinnacle of precision shooting technology. Everything about the setup suggested capabilities that went far beyond conventional military applications. "What kind of missions require this level of precision?" Maya asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Morrison's smile was cold and calculating. "The kind where one person with exceptional skills can accomplish what an entire conventional military unit cannot. Where political problems are solved permanently and quietly, without the complications of traditional warfare." He led her to one of the shooting positions, where a rifle was already set up on a sophisticated rest system. The weapon was unlike anything Maya had worked with, featuring a custom barrel, specialized optics, and modifications that clearly represented years of development and testing. "This rifle is capable of accurate fire at distances exceeding 1,500 yards, Morrison continued. "In the right hands, it can eliminate specific targets with precision that leaves no doubt about intent while maintaining plausible deniability about responsibility." Maya understood now why Morrison had been so interested in her performance. He wasn't just recruiting a sniper. He was looking for someone who could combine technical expertise with shooting ability to become an instrument of targeted assassination. The precision she had demonstrated in competition would be used to eliminate human beings from distances where they would never know they were being hunted. "I appreciate the opportunity, Sergeant Morrison, but I don't think this kind of work is what I'm looking for in my military career." Morrison's expression hardened slightly, though his tone remained conversational. "Before you make that decision, let me show you exactly what this rifle is capable of. Sometimes understanding the full potential of a tool helps clarify its appropriate applications." He gestured toward the far end of the range, where Maya could barely make out a target positioned at what appeared to be an impossible distance. Through binoculars, she could see that it was a steel plate, roughly the size of a human head, placed at a range that had to exceed anything she had attempted during the competition. 1,400 yards, Morrison confirmed. With current wind conditions and the ballistics of this particular ammunition, it requires adjustments that push the limits of both equipment and operator skill. Maya found herself drawn to the technical challenge, despite her reservations about Morrison's intentions. The ballistics calculations required for such a shot would be incredibly complex, involving factors she had only read about in advanced technical manuals. Morrison began setting up the rifle, his movements precise and practiced. The key is understanding that at these distances, traditional shooting fundamentals become secondary to environmental factors. Wind, temperature, humidity, even the rotation of the earth become significant. He demonstrated the process of calculating the required adjustments, using instruments and techniques that were far more sophisticated than anything Maya had encountered. The mathematical precision required was fascinating from a technical standpoint, even as she recognized the lethal applications for which it was being developed. "Your turn," Morrison said. Stepping back from the rifle, Maya hesitated, understanding that attempting the shot would represent a form of complicity with Morrison's recruitment efforts. At the same time, the technical challenge was unlike anything she had ever encountered, testing the limits of both her theoretical knowledge and practical shooting ability. She settled behind the rifle, immediately noticing how different it felt from her familiar equipment. The weight, balance, and trigger characteristics were optimized for precision rather than general military use. Through the scope, the distant target appeared as a tiny speck that seemed to dance in the atmospheric distortion. Morrison guided her through the process of calculating the required adjustments, explaining how environmental factors affected bullet flight at extreme distances. The mathematical complexity was staggering, requiring consideration of variables that were negligible at shorter ranges but became critical at 1,400 yards. Maya made the adjustments Morrison recommended, then spent several minutes studying the wind indicators and environmental conditions. At this distance, even minor errors in calculation or execution would result in complete misses, making the shot as much about theoretical understanding as practical skill. She controlled her breathing, finding the natural point of stillness between heartbeats. The crosshairs settled on the tiny target, wavering slightly as she compensated for the atmospheric conditions. The trigger broke cleanly, and the rifle recoiled smoothly as the bullet began its long flight. The time of flight at 1,400 yards seemed endless, and Maya maintained her sight picture while waiting for either the sound of impact or the sight of a miss. When the metallic ring finally reached them, indicating a solid hit on the steel target, Morrison's satisfaction was evident. "Exceptional shot, Rodriguez. You just demonstrated the kind of precision that very few people in the world are capable of achieving." Maya felt a mixture of pride and unease at the achievement. The shot had been technically perfect, proving that her combination of theoretical knowledge and practical skill could be applied at distances she had never imagined possible. But the implications of that capability in Morrison's hands were deeply troubling. "Now you understand what I'm offering," Morrison continued. "Training that would develop your abilities far beyond what conventional military service could provide. Work that would use your skills for purposes that matter on a global scale." Maya stepped back from the rifle, her decision crystallizing despite the temptation represented by the advanced training and sophisticated equipment. "I understand the offer, Sergeant Morrison, but my answer is no. I want to continue my current assignment." Morrison's expression shifted, becoming harder and more calculating. "Are you certain about that decision, Rodriguez? Opportunities like this don't come along often, and declining them can sometimes limit future options in unexpected ways." The subtle threat in his tone confirmed Maya's instincts about the danger Morrison represented. This wasn't just about recruitment. It was about identifying individuals with specific capabilities and ensuring their cooperation through whatever means necessary. "I'm certain," Maya replied firmly, though she could feel the weight of Morrison's intense stare as she prepared to leave the specialized range facility. Morrison's reaction to Maya's refusal was immediate and chilling. His demeanor shifted from recruitment mode to something far more dangerous, the mask of professional courtesy dropping to reveal the predator underneath. "I'm disappointed in your decision, Rodriguez. People with your unique combination of technical knowledge and natural ability are extremely rare. It would be unfortunate if that talent were wasted in routine maintenance work." Maya recognized the threat implicit in his words, but she maintained her composure while backing away from the rifle. "I appreciate the opportunity, but I'm satisfied with my current assignment." Morrison moved closer, his positioning subtly blocking her most direct path back toward the main base. "Sometimes people need time to fully understand the implications of their choices. Perhaps after you've had a chance to think about it more carefully, you'll reconsider." "There's nothing to reconsider. I'm not interested in the kind of work you're describing." Morrison's smile was predatory now, all pretense of friendly recruitment abandoned. "Let me explain something about how this works, Rodriguez. When we identify someone with your capabilities, that information gets shared with people who make decisions about national security priorities. Your demonstration today will be documented and evaluated by individuals who might not be as patient with your reluctance to serve or Maya felt a chill as she realized the full scope of what she had gotten herself into. Morrison wasn't just a recruiter. He was part of a system that identified individuals with specific skills and then applied pressure to ensure their cooperation. Her performance in the competition and her successful shot at extreme range had marked her as a valuable asset that wouldn't be easily dismissed. "Are you threatening me, Sergeant Morrison?" "I'm explaining reality. You've demonstrated capabilities that are considered strategically valuable. Declining to use those capabilities in service to your country might be viewed as unpatriotic by some people." Maya understood now why Captain Mitchell had been so concerned about Morrison's interest. This wasn't about recruitment. It was about coercion and control. Her technical expertise and shooting ability had made her a target for people who operated outside normal military channels. "I need to get back to my unit," Maya said, moving toward the exit. Morrison made no move to physically stop her, but his voice carried a note of finality. "Think carefully about your position, Rodriguez. We'll be in touch soon to discuss your future assignments. I hope you'll be more cooperative when that conversation takes place." Maya left the specialized range facility with her mind racing, understanding that her situation had become far more complex and dangerous than she had anticipated. Morrison's threats weren't empty posturing. He represented people who had the power and influence to make her life extremely difficult if she continued to resist their recruitment efforts. She returned to her barracks room and immediately began researching her options. The military bureaucracy that had always seemed protective now appeared potentially hostile, filled with people who might view her refusal to cooperate as insubordination or worse. Morrison's connections extended beyond normal command structures, making it unclear whom she could trust or where she could turn for help. Her research was interrupted by a knock on her door. Maya opened it cautiously, expecting to find Morrison or one of his associates, but instead saw Captain Mitchell standing in the hallway with a concerned expression. "We need to talk," Captain Mitchell said quietly. "Away from here." They walked to Captain Mitchell's vehicle and drove off base to a small diner where their conversation couldn't be monitored or overheard. Captain Mitchell waited until they were seated in a secluded booth before speaking. "Morrison came to see me after your conversation at the range. He's not happy about your refusal to cooperate with his recruitment efforts. He made that pretty clear. He also made it clear that my refusal might not be accepted as final." Captain Mitchell nodded grimly. "Morrison represents a program that operates with significant autonomy and minimal oversight. When they identify someone with capabilities they need, they're persistent about securing cooperation." "What kind of leverage do they have?" "More than you might think. They can influence assignments, performance evaluations, security clearances, and career advancement. People who don't cooperate often find themselves facing disciplinary actions for minor infractions, or assigned to positions where their skills are wasted." Maya felt the weight of her situation settling on her shoulders. "So what are my options?" Captain Mitchell was quiet for several minutes, clearly choosing her words carefully. "There are people within the military structure who are concerned about programs like Morrison's. People who believe that soldiers shouldn't be coerced into assignments that violate their personal ethics or career preferences. Are you saying there's some kind of internal opposition to what Morrison represents?" "I'm saying that you're not alone in this situation, and there are resources available to help people who find themselves being pressured by programs that operate outside normal command channels." Captain Mitchell handed Maya a business card with only a phone number printed on it. "If Morrison continues to pressure you, or if you face any kind of retaliation for refusing his recruitment efforts, call that number. The people who answer will know how to help." Maya studied the card, understanding that accepting it represented a form of commitment to resist Morrison's recruitment efforts rather than simply hope the problem would disappear. "What happens if I call this number?" "You'll be connected with people who specialize in protecting soldiers from coercive recruitment practices. They have resources and authority that Morrison doesn't expect, and they're very good at making problems like this go away permanently." Maya pocketed the card, feeling both relief and apprehension about the protection it might represent. "Why are you helping me with this?" Captain Mitchell's expression was serious and somewhat sad. "Because I was in a similar situation once, several years ago. I made the choice to cooperate with people like Morrison, and I've regretted it ever since. The work they wanted me to do, it changed me in ways that I'm still trying to understand." "What did they have you do?" "Things that were technically legal and officially sanctioned, but morally questionable. Operations where precision shooting skills were used to eliminate problems that couldn't be solved through conventional military action. It's effective work, but it leaves marks on your conscience that don't fade with time. Maya understood now why Captain Mitchell had been so concerned about Morrison's interest. She had personal experience with the kind of assignments Morrison was recruiting for, and that experience had convinced her that such work extracted costs that went far beyond professional obligations. "I don't want to become that kind of soldier," Maya said firmly. "Then don't. Use the resources I've given you, and don't let Morrison or his people pressure you into making decisions you'll regret for the rest of your life." As they drove back to base, Maya felt the weight of the choice ahead of her. Morrison wouldn't give up easily, and the confrontation that was coming would test not only her resolve, but also her ability to resist pressures that had broken other soldiers' resistance. The card in her pocket represented hope, but Maya understood that using it would mark her as an active opponent of Morrison's program, rather than simply an uncooperative recruit. The stakes were rising, and the next phase of the conflict would determine whether she could maintain her principles while serving her country on her own terms. 3 days passed without any contact from Morrison, and Maya began to hope that her firm refusal had been sufficient to end his recruitment efforts. She returned to her normal routine in the armory, maintaining weapons and equipment with the same meticulous attention to detail that had always characterized her work. The familiar rhythm of disassembly inspection and calibration provided comfort after the stress of Morrison's pressure. That false sense of security was shattered when Maya arrived at work to find her supervisor, Master Sergeant Williams, waiting with a troubled expression and official paperwork in his hands. "Rodriguez, I've got some bad news. You're being transferred immediately to a new assignment. Special Operations Command has requested your services for a classified project." Maya felt her stomach drop as she realized Morrison had made good on his threat. "What kind of project, Master Sergeant?" "I don't have details. The orders are classified and you're supposed to report to Building 47 within the hour. Your replacement is already en route." Maya knew that Building 47 housed administrative offices for special operations units, the kind of place where personnel were processed for assignments that didn't appear on normal duty rosters. Morrison had used his influence to force her cooperation through official channels, making refusal tantamount to disobeying direct orders. "Master Sergeant, I need to make a phone call before I report." Williams nodded sympathetically. "Take whatever time you need, Rodriguez. This kind of sudden transfer isn't normal, and I don't like the way it's being handled." Maya stepped outside the armory and dialed the number Captain Mitchell had given her, her hands shaking slightly as she waited for someone to answer. The phone was picked up after 2 rings by a professional female voice. "Security Review Office, how can I help you? Captain Mitchell gave me this number. I'm Specialist Rodriguez and I'm being pressured to accept an assignment I don't want." "Hold, please." "Specialist Rodriguez." The line was quiet for several minutes before a different voice came on, this one male and carrying the authority of senior rank. "Specialist Rodriguez, this is Colonel Hayes. Captain Mitchell briefed me on your situation. Are you facing immediate pressure to report for reassignment?" "Yes, sir. I've been ordered to report to Building 47 within the hour for a classified assignment with Special Operations Command." "Understood. Do not report to that assignment. Instead, report to Building 12, Room 203. Ask for Major Peterson. She's expecting you." "Sir, these are official orders. Won't disobeying them result in disciplinary action?" "Not when those orders were issued through improper channels for coercive purposes. Major Peterson has the authority to countermand those orders and provide you with protection from further harassment." Maya felt a surge of relief mixed with apprehension. "What happens after I report to Major Peterson?" "That depends on several factors, including your willingness to provide information about the recruitment attempts you've experienced. But I can guarantee that you won't be forced into any assignments that violate your personal ethics or career preferences." Maya ended the call and walked quickly across the base toward Building 12, her mind racing with questions about what kind of protection was being offered and what it might cost her. The building housed various administrative offices, but Room 203 was unmarked except for a number on the door. Major Peterson was a woman in her early 40s with graying hair and the calm demeanor of someone accustomed to handling complex problems. Her office was spartanly furnished, but contained computer equipment that suggested access to high-level information systems. "Specialist Rodriguez, please have a seat." Colonel Hayes explained your situation, and I want you to know that you're not the first soldier to face this kind of pressure from Morrison's program. What exactly is Morrison's program, ma'am? Officially, it doesn't exist. Unofficially, it's a recruitment and training operation that identifies individuals with specialized skills and pressures them into accepting assignments that often violate normal military protocols. Major Peterson opened a file folder that contained documents Maya recognized as copies of her personnel records, training certifications, and competition results. Morrison has been monitoring your progress for some time, probably since your first high scores at the base range. Your combination of technical expertise and natural shooting ability makes you extremely valuable for the kind of work his program conducts. Captain Mitchell mentioned that there are people working to stop programs like Morrison's. There are. We represent a security review function that investigates recruitment practices and protects soldiers from coercive assignment procedures. Morrison's program operates with minimal oversight, and we provide a check on their activities. Major Peterson explained that Maya's situation was part of a larger pattern of coercive recruitment that had been targeting soldiers with specialized skills across multiple bases. The program Morrison represented had been operating for years, identifying individuals with capabilities suited for targeted elimination missions and then using various forms of pressure to secure their cooperation. What we need from you is detailed information about Morrison's recruitment attempts, including any threats or pressure tactics he used. That information will be used to build a case for shutting down his operation entirely. Maya provided a complete account of her interactions with Morrison, from his initial approach at the competition through the threats he had made after her refusal to cooperate. Major Peterson recorded everything, asking detailed questions about Morrison's methods and the specific capabilities he had demonstrated at the specialized range facility. The shot you made at 1,400 yards is significant, Major Peterson noted. That level of precision at extreme range is exactly what Morrison's program uses to justify their recruitment methods. Your demonstration proved you have the capabilities they need. What happens now? Morrison's transfer orders have been canceled and you'll return to your normal assignment in the armory. Morrison will be informed that you're under security review protection, which should end his recruitment efforts. And if it doesn't, then Morrison will discover that his program doesn't have as much autonomy as he believes. We have resources and authority that his operations don't account for. Major Peterson handed Maya a secure phone and a new business card. If Morrison or anyone associated with his program contacts you again, call immediately. Don't try to handle the situation yourself. As Maya prepared to leave, Major Peterson offered one final piece of advice. Your shooting ability and technical knowledge are genuine assets to the military, Rodriguez. Don't let Morrison's interest make you doubt the value of your skills. There are ways to serve your country that don't require compromising your principles. Maya returned to the armory to find Master Sergeant Williams waiting with obvious relief. Your transfer orders have been canceled. I don't know what kind of pull you have, but someone high up decided that keeping you here was more important than whatever SOC wanted you for. That evening, Maya received a text message from an unknown number. Offer remains open. Reconsider your position. The message confirmed that Morrison hadn't given up, but Maya no longer felt the fear and isolation that had characterized her earlier encounters with his pressure tactics. She deleted the message and returned to her technical manuals, focusing on the precision instrument maintenance that had always provided both challenge and satisfaction. Her shooting competition had revealed capabilities she hadn't known she possessed, but more importantly, it had tested her resolve in ways that went far beyond accuracy and precision. Maya had learned that her true strength lay not in her ability to hit distant targets, but in her willingness to defend her principles against pressure from people who would use her skills for purposes she couldn't accept. The competition had ended, but the victory that mattered most was the one that allowed her to continue serving her country on her own terms. Morrison's smirk had challenged her to prove what she could hit. Maya had responded by proving what she wouldn't hit, demonstrating a different kind of precision that was far more important than any target she could engage at extreme range.